Mynoo is getting us set up for our 102nd Pearl of Wisdom. Tonight's going to be really interesting. I'm always excited to hear Mynoo's unique vantage point. And tonight, unlike all others, we're going to be talking about our 102nd Pearl of Wisdom. 102nd Pearl of Wisdom. Amazing. Welcome to everyone tonight. We are going to be speaking with Mynoo Maryel as she brings forth our 102nd Pearl of Wisdom on parenting. Now, parenting is a little different than what you might think of. It's not just about parent and child. So make sure to stay tuned because we're going to delve into that shortly. Mynoo Maryel will share the 7 what she calls super skills that will help you enrich the children in your life and what those children, who those children are and what they mean, how you can develop them and what you can do to strengthen them ongoingly. Now, what impact this is going to have on the quality of your life and aliveness. So parenting, we often think of as the parent and the child, but there is so much more to it that Mynoo will explain tonight. I know I needed clarification on it, which she gave me a little inside skinny, as we say, right before we became live on Facebook. So please stay tuned tonight. Make sure you have paper, pen ready. You can always re-listen to this on Facebook Live, but we are on our, I want to say we are celebrating our 102nd Pearl of Wisdom tonight, which is on parenting. So thank you again for joining. And with that said, over to you, Mynoo Maryel.
Thank you, Catherine. And I was excited about this being a pearl of wisdom, parenting being a pearl of wisdom. We know how it affects all our lives. And Catherine asked me this question, is this about children? Or is this about parenting a project or a business? And it's really, we'll talk more about that in a moment, but it really is about everything that comes together in parenting, certainly about our children, but we also birth and rebirth ourselves from time to time and become our own parent. And we also carry the baggage of whatever experiences we might have had from our parents. So this particular Pearl of Wisdom addresses all of those things, and in fact sets you free to make your choices and charge yourself with these super skills. So let's engage with what they are.
Thank you, Mynoo.
Okay, parenting. I thought it's worth looking at. I always now, when I do the Pearls of Wisdom, I always look at, okay, what's the dictionary definition talking about? And when I looked at it, dictionary talks about parenting. I just want to be sure, yes, that we were recording, and we are. So parenting, they talk about parenting practices around the world. That 3 major goals they say they share, which is to do with children's health and safety, preparing children for life as productive adults, and transmitting cultural values. High quality parent-child relationship is recognized as critical for healthy development. And there was also this discussion about there are 4 primary styles of parenting: permissive, authoritative, neglectful, and authoritarian. So having looked at all of this that the dictionary talks about, I engaged with the 7 super skills. And the 7 super skills, these are 7 super skills. I'll talk about them in a moment, but really think about it, 3 major goals: ensuring children's health, safety, preparing children for life and productive skills, and transmitting cultural values. Where else are we doing that? Many of us don't have children, and we have been a child of a parent. So it's really looking at, this is not limited to us having children. You may be a project leader in your work, or you may have a team for a particular project or an assignment that you are engaged in. The team doesn't have to report to you. If you're like you are an actress on a set, Catherine, there's the whole set and everybody that comes together to make that production happen. Health and safety for yourself and others. I mean, we are accountable for that, preparing ourselves for lives becoming productive citizens, and transmitting cultural values. All of that becomes really important. Okay. So it is relevant and important to whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever it is that you're engaged in. The 7 super skills. These were skills. This is when my son was 5 years old, and we got ourselves into a situation where at this point he wanted to exercise his independence and his authoritative independence at that, right? So my commands were literally landing on deaf ears again and again and again, and just could not have a communication with him. Everything felt like a battle. I was out there saying no much more than I was saying yes, and he was giving me a pushback. And I felt that this little 5-year-old is manipulating me. So there was that little bit of sort of resentment, but then there was also regret and there was shame that how could this happen to me, This is well before I embarked on my spiritual awakenings. So then I looked at, well, whatever it is that is being taught to him, couldn't blame, he's only 5, guess he was going to school, but couldn't really talk about what kind of skills were being taught at school. But I was very present to whatever I had learned. And here I am, with an MBA and all of that, as well as tons of decades of life experience. And there were clearly certain skills that were missing, that was creating this experience from one of the most joyous acts I had ever engaged in, which is bringing up this child. And now here I am having a very different experience. So there's something that was missing. And it was in that inquiry that I distilled these 7 super skills. If I was to look at super skills itself, they are components or qualities that really create a very unique operating system of a person. And they are critical. And yet there I was, being a parent, totally missing what they were. So here they are. I'm going to talk about these 7 super skills, and then we'll go into each one in detail. The skills that I distilled were skills of confidence, creativity, effort, responsibility, dignity, discernment, decisiveness, problem solving. And for me, it was like, wow, it would be great for me as a parent to be able to imbibe these skills in my child. And wouldn't it be great if the way we did this was I developed these skills in myself? So I could have, if I was having a downtime, I could access confidence on tap. I could apply my creative abilities to solve any problems. So with this understanding, I went into each of the super skills. And this time I decided I was going to co-create it with my son, the ways in which we could bring these skills to life. I then realized he was totally not interested in the theory or in the meaning of any of these words. But he liked the idea of creating games that we could play together. So we literally took each one and we created a collection of games. And it's, or activities. So it was games and activities, both. And then we would just choose one of them and then just go ahead and choose one of the activities and go ahead and play those activities. And that was transformative. When we took confidence first and embarked on a very simple game together. There were the three of us in our family. And within 10 minutes of playing that game, he transformed, I transformed, my partner Phil transformed, and our relationship with each other completely transformed. We continue to play this game over and over. I played with, when we have family gatherings, whenever there is a Discord, we play this game. And it has a transformative effect. So it is to do with the first super skill. The first super skill is confidence. Well, what is confidence? Confidence is feeling sure of yourself and your abilities. It's not in an arrogant way, but in a very realistic, secure way. Confidence is not about feeling superior to others. It's sort of like an inner knowledge or an inner knowing that you're capable. And often confident people are secure within themselves. So with this first super skill, we looked at the game basically that we created was 3 things that you really love about someone else. So there were the 3 of us, Phil, me, and Sai. And it was like 3 things. I got Phil to start. Say 3 things that you love about Sai, and 3 things that you love about Mynoo, and 3 things that you love about yourself. And I wasn't sure whether this 5-year-old was even going to sit through this, because he was already so, he did it under duress, but because we had co-created the game together, he was willing to hang in there. I'm very sure if I had come up with, we're going to do this activity, he would have rebelled, even at that age. And it would have been quite a task to keep him there. But because we had co-created this game, he sat in there. And Phil said the 3 things that he loves about Sai. And then I said 3 things that I love about him. And then I asked him, expecting a usual response, I don't feel like talking. And this child did not do that. He just went into 3 things that I love about Sai, like literally talking like that as an observer of himself. And he started sharing those 3 things. And it was amazing what he came up with. That in itself, the moment he got to that point, he transformed. I expected at the time, it was really wrong to come from this filter, 3 things that Sai loves about Phil, about Dad. I expected him to come up with nothing, or Dad's ties are really attractive, which he used to really like. But no, he didn't. He came up with some really deep stuff that got us to realize, oh, actually, we weren't just wasting our time in the parenting that we had engaged in up to that point in time. This child does observe. He does absorb. So it was very powerful. And that in itself showed us that he was secure. He'd gone from feeling insecure and therefore giving a pushback and rushing away and running around when he could be sitting down and doing something with focus, to actually landing, literally landing into an inner knowing that he is capable. And what it did for me, because I was starting to have some serious self-doubt about whether or not I'm even cut out to be a parent. Phil totally believed that he wasn't cut out to be a parent. But when we heard him say what he as a child loved about us, it gave us the confidence that we actually are doing a pretty decent job here. Now, that was an interaction with the child and us as parents. So I just thought, well, wow, this is a really simple game. Anyone can use it. And I can use it at work as much as I can use it at home. And I am an entrepreneur. I do create businesses. So when we recruit staff, we form teams around projects, there is a little bit of a judiciousness as a parent that I take upon myself. And we started using this very simple game, 3 things that you love about yourself. And we would do this in team meetings. And it literally transformed the confidence that many of our team members had about what it is that they were doing. I then used it by applying another layer to it. Like really setting the context. Here we are. And this is when I was at work and the UK government invited, I ran the Inspired Leaders Network. I'd founded it and it had been running for a while. It had the who's who of the British echelon of industry and governance who were members of it. So we were known for what we were doing. So I was invited by the British Department of Trade and Industry to look at this European Union report about the top 10 top 10 countries in the European Union who had the most inspiring leaders. And Britain was not even there in the top 10. So they called us in simply by the virtue of the name of the organization to say, we want to engage you in a research. And the research was to understand whether inspired leaders are born or can they actually be created, in which case let's create an index. And then let's have that index be available to the venture community, the financing community, because after all, they do finance leaders. And what I saw was, this super skill of confidence was flawed even at the highest level. When I started doing this research and I met some of the most amazing leaders, what I found was when you are lacking in confidence or there's a lack of some kind, you start taking that confidence level out of the other person, and like literally but really what you're doing is screaming out for having a transformation in this area within yourself. So it is indeed a super skill that is not necessarily taught in this implementation sort of way. What became clear to me in working with these super skills on parenting, that, we could write a book and create lots of theories around it, and yet it won't change anything. So now that I'm doing this 102nd Pearl of Wisdom, I think it's probably time for me to actually publish this material that was co-created with my little 5-year-old. And then we continued to upgrade this as he grew older. At 13, there were various practices or activities that we did in terms of being able to say no, stand up for yourself, feeling confidence in the face of bullying. And I'm seeing us, I see Sai sharing this with my grandson, who is 5 now. And bullying is starting to be noticed in the playground. And I was like, oh, yay, we created that exercise around dealing with bullies. So it is a super skill that applies to all of us. How can you work with this for yourself? We are all adults here. So you can begin by really feeling sure of your own abilities. And you do that by acknowledging your own abilities and acknowledging where these abilities have made a difference. Acknowledging what difference these abilities have actually made. What became possible that was not possible before as a result of something that you contributed. That in itself will land you in a space of knowing. knowing that, you are secure. And you're secure not because somebody else is saying something, you're secure because you have anchored it in reality. Let's look at the second super skill. The second super skill is effort. I mean, I had a situation a little bit when I got a little bit older where there was the boredom factor. He would get bored. I'm bored. I'm bored. And this bored word started playing out when he was 6, I'm bored. And it's like, but it was like we had to do something to entertain him all the time, and it wasn't what he wanted. He was bored still. And it was like, you need to take some effort yourself. Effort is the ability to apply physical or mental strength or energy that you require to get something done. So there's like, okay, taking that effort, having that ability to apply physical or mental strength or energy to get something done, that is a super skill. And it is important for all of us to know and understand this. And I also felt that, okay, what about me as a parent? Here I am telling him, come on, you take the effort, stop this boredom stuff. So what am I doing? I'm just reacting to what he's complaining about. So I mean, I'm not taking the effort to shift this engagement that we've caught ourselves in. I see this even today, where I see this with people where they've got older children, and there's some sibling rivalry that still plays out between these kids, and they may be in their 40s or 50s, and yet the older parents are deeply affected, and at this point they're questioning themselves. What mistakes did they make? You see this happening within your team. I've seen this occur quite often, where the team members, you suddenly become mother hen or papa, the father of this team, and you have to provide for everything. But it's really what you want is each member of the team to take that effort. And think about us, there are times when we are suddenly faced with a whole new environment and we become very entitled. So there's the symptom of the effort super skill that requires to be put into action. It lies in where we start feeling entitled. And that entitlement could be to validation, or it could be to a particular reward, whatever it may be. You know that you are not applying your own ability to utilize your own physical, mental strength and capabilities to get something done. That's where the effort super skill plays a very important role. So what I do and what I have done to refresh myself ongoingly, encouraged my son to do this also. See, when a child is, it could be a situation where you're dealing with siblings and they are having, they're not agreeing on something, and you as an older parent are struggling to make any impact on that. And really what you want is for them to put the effort in resolving the situation as opposed to exasperating it, because the effort is being put in, like Sai complaining about boredom. Effort was being put in finding justifications for why he was bored and why somebody else needed to provide it with the solution. Effort is being put with two siblings, arguing with each other about something or choosing to not take any particular. They are putting the effort in that, as opposed to putting the effort in concluding whatever it is that requires to get done. So with how do you build this super skill of effort for yourself so you don't become um, you don't develop an apathy towards something that seems to be really important, and you just couldn't be bothered? How do you get yourself out of the couldn't be bothered situation? Because that being that couldn't be bothered once in a while is fine, but when it extends or overstays its welcome, even that vibration of couldn't be bothered actually is quite depleting. So what can you do about that? You know, um, it's really about you creating a motivation for yourself to take the effort. But the reality is, when if it is something that you're interested in, you take the effort. There's no question about it. And even if you don't know what to do, it hasn't stopped you. So how do you work with effort? You actually look at what is this unique ability, your, in terms of your physical and mental strength, that is so unique to you that you have applied from time to time to get something done. The power of building these super skills and catching up where you might not have had this done before lies in acknowledging. So when you see and understand your own physical and mental strength or energy and how you applied that to get something done, and you anchor it in reality of what you've already done, here I then say, okay, just look at people around you, and what is it that they say is very unique about your physical or mental strength that they feel empowers them? Whether or not you have anybody saying this to you, it's worth looking at. I was totally amazed. When I do this kind of examination, I always go last 5 years, last 10 years, last 20 years. I do give it the time, and I use time segmentation as a way of giving the time, which means, when I'm focusing on the time segmentation of the super skills of charging my 7 super skills of parenting, that's what I'm doing. I don't spend a whole day on it. I might spend just 15 minutes, So just in that 15 minutes of effort examination, I saw so much of how I approach getting something done. And what is it that gets me to take that effort? What was the challenge before, and how and what I did to turn it around? So one of our games for effort was exactly that with Sai, in the context of boredom. So we just took, we would go for a walk every day, every Sunday, actually. Every Sunday, there's a big walk that we did on Hampstead Heath in London. And it was a 3-mile walk. And for a little 5-year-old, he was excited at some point, and then would get quite bored after that. And then he was too much, it was too old. He wasn't a baby. And so he was a bit heavy to carry around, so we had to find a way in which he would take the effort to complete the walk. So then we looked at, okay, what is it that's going to make him take the effort and snap him out of boredom? It would be curiosity, arousing his curiosity. So we created this whole song and dance about, let's find that place where the teddy bears are having their picnic. And we would go hunting. And there was a song that gave us a cadence for when we were walking, and we were looking for where teddy bears were having their picnic. And we knew there were so many wonderful areas to explore. So created a little bit of an adventure, with an end result that whether or not we find the teddy bears, will come to a clearing where we will have a picnic. And you can actually map that onto anything. I'm talking about a 5-year-old. But really, when I look at how I applied this super skill in a team of a business that I had created, where I certainly felt responsible like a parent to each one of them, we would create an adventure project. It was always there. Despite whatever else may be going on, there was always this little adventure project that we would have. And we would give different people the turn to define what that adventure was going to be for this next month or the next quarter. The more intense the project we were working on, the more exciting and thrilling the adventure would be. So you will create your own ways of making this super skill as a skill that you operate from. I've used this particular super skill in resolving conflict in quite difficult, tense situations. A lot of the time, the conflict propagates because nobody's taking the effort to resolve that conflict. They're taking the effort in propagating it. So the effort capability is there in the participants, but the effort to resolve it is not being handled. Nobody's interested in that. They may say it, but they are not. But that's not where the effort is being directed. So that realization in itself breaks the pattern. And then I get people to, okay, so now let's look at, well, what is this? Assuming there is no conflict, what would that look like? And then the effort starts being applied in envisioning what it would look like when there is no conflict. I've used this in family situations where there's been huge breakdowns, where people do come together and envision what it would look like if there was no conflict. And once they've arrived at that, then my next question is, assuming this had occurred, what would you look like? And what sort of words would you be using? What would you be feeling? And look at other members who are right now in this conflict with you. You've had this breakthrough, and there you are looking the way you just described, sounding the way you just talked about. What do they look like looking at you like this? What do they sound like? What sort of words are they using? And how are they feeling? So really what we're doing here is activating visual, auditory, and kinesthetic responses. And then I say to them, okay, look back now at that time when you were in this session with Mynoo. What was missing and essential that you put in place for yourself that enabled this breakthrough to take place? And people come up with, often it's a way of being, so it often shifts from being right to actually being resolved about the outcome. And then I just ask them, okay, put that in place. So now what's the logical next step? And when you do this with one person in a conflict situation, everybody else is impacted. And actually everyone is going to go through their own description of what it would be like if there was no conflict. So wherever you're at, this super skill of effort sharpens your physical and mental strength and energy. And you can accomplish anything. And remember, we did a very early Pearl of Wisdom on conflict, where I talked about a conflict is a con inflicted on you, sometimes by yourself. And this effort ability as a super skill transforms that. So take the effort to acknowledge for yourself your own physical and mental strength and how you have applied it already to get something done. And then look at situations where you might apply the super skill. The third super skill is problem solving. Problem solving what is it? It's an act of defining the problem fully, really determining the cause of the problem, and then having the ability to identify, prioritize, select alternatives for a solution. and take it all the way forward to implementing the solution. Very powerful super skill. Is it to do just with the child? Absolutely not. It's certainly to do with the child, but also to do with me as a parent. I realized that first it was like, I really wish he could solve his own problems and stop harassing me about his boredom. I've just come home after a whole day's work, and here we are. I'm bored. I mean, what can I do now? And it's too late for us to go out anyway. He's got school tomorrow. But so as a parent, what am I doing here? I'm only exasperating the problem. And can I solve his boredom problem? Absolutely not. Problem solving automatically brings you into co-creation. But first you have to understand the problem precisely. And then look at what is the cause of the problem. So when I looked at, well, what is the problem here? I realized that the reality isn't that he's bored. He just wants to complain about something that will engage me. Even if takes me to a state of frustration, but I am engaged with him at that time. So then I got, he simply wants to engage with me. It isn't about boredom. It's a complaint. And then it was like, okay, is it real what he's complaining about? Well, what he's complaining about is my lack of availability or time to engage with him. And that is real, yes. Can I do something about it? Yes, I could do something about it. And then it was like, okay, so, and how did I arrive at these answers? Not by sitting and imagining it. You have a child going on about, I'm bored. You can't be sitting there imagining or contemplating. I chose to co-create with him. I chose to really define what the problem is, what is the cause of the problem, and what could be the solutions. So then when we got into, okay, he just simply wants to engage, then we co-created solutions. And then I was able to share with him, like when I get home, there's a whole day that has gone on and I've been working. So then what can we do? And he comes up with, I can massage your feet. I mean, this is a tiny little kid coming up with this. And like, you massage me when I'm tired, I can massage you. Now, would I like that? Yes. Would I have thought about that as a way of solving a problem with a child who's complaining about boredom? I probably wouldn't have. And that was amazing bonding that happened. And then, okay, massaging every day also can become boring. He only said that. He says, if he did that all the time, then that also be boring. So let's look at alternatives. And then he says, okay, he loved collecting coins, and he loved collecting notes from different parts of the world. He also had I had a fascination for flags, but he didn't have a fascination for that. He had a fascination for crystals, which I didn't understand then. I totally get it now. So he says, then sometimes I can tell you about the Power Stone. Okay, that sounds good. And we were just imagining it. We'll just imagine, Mom, we'll imagine the powers and we'll make the stone even more powerful. That was great and didn't take that much time. It was taking much more time giving him a pushback on shut up about boredom, do something for yourself. And him saying, I did it, but I'm bored. This took far less time. It was far more entertaining. Solutions were found, problem solved. And we are seeing this happen with my 5-year-old grandson now, who's starting to think, this is so boring. And I'm seeing Sai playing this game with him. So they have this game now of every time you're bored, you think of something interesting and start an interesting conversation. And it's really building his intellect. It's pretty interesting. I'll share in the Beyond Meditation group a conversation that they were having yesterday about energy and magnets and stuff like that, that came out of, I'm getting bored now, to that. And that was problem solving. It is a super skill required by us at any age. You know, when you're working with these super skills of parenting, you just so totally and completely accept your parents for however they might have treated you. Because you realize so much goes into it. The fourth super skill is dignity. So what is dignity? Dignity is something, one, it is something that we are born with, and it is honoring of our own worthiness. And from that space, honoring it in others, other living things, and the planet itself. So with dignity, you know, this, how do you diagnose that dignity is the super skill that requires work on? It's when you engage in blame, or when you see your child blaming. You know, when you see your team members engaging in blame, you know, okay, dignity alert is that super skill of dignity. And the starting point of dignity is honoring of your own worthiness. Often when someone feels that dignity is taken away and stuff, we're engaging in that. How? And on various reasons why dignity has been taken away. And actually, it is honoring of your own worthiness. There is no taking away of that. The only person that takes away the honoring of your own worthiness, remember the words are very important. The honoring of your own worthiness means worthiness is there, exists. What gets taken away is you not honoring it in yourself. And then others don't honor it either, but you haven't honored it first. So how do you address a dignity issue? Is by first going into honoring your own worthiness. Like literally this is where I would use the lay of the land in a full spectrum way. Really look at you physically, mentally. So physically, what is it that you believe is truly worthy about you? I mean, even us having life, which is a state in which we are breathing, a gift from the Creator, that is worthy of honoring. We have our physical body, however it may be, you know, and the physical space that we are in, other physical assets that we might have or have access to. Honor it. Mental is intellectual. Your thoughts, the kind of thoughts you have, the kind of beliefs that you have, the kind of abilities that you have. Anything that's not very physical, touch and feel, it goes into the mental column. What is it that's worthy about you there? You know, like my ability to connect the dots, my ability to really get to the nuance, 0.01% that produces 100% impact. I mean, I acknowledge that. That's truly worthy about me. Emotional is the feeling part. Very different than mental. It's about feeling. You know, so what's worthy about you emotionally? The fact that you can feel, the fact that you can empathize. I mean, it could be anything. I'm just giving you examples. And then you go into spiritual. Spiritual really, to me, is connection to your spirit. And from that space, duality disappears and you can connect to the spirit of others. What's worthy about me there? The spirit of me, what's worthy there? You can, at this point, you can consider the kind of acknowledgements you might have received from others. Socially is the next examination. What's worthy about me in the social dynamics I make happen. Acknowledge that. Then you go into the environment. What's worthy about me in terms of the environment that I'm able to create? The environment that I naturally transform. You may have one thing or you may have nothing, doesn't matter. The fact that you ask this question with the intention of acknowledging it, that in itself is you acknowledging your worthiness. So you can imagine, just going back to the super skills, how we worked on dignity with my child. I'd use this with my grandkids all the time. What's worthy about you? And that in itself is a very interesting conversation. I asked my 5-year-old, what's worth, okay, I've been gone for a while. I've come back 3 weeks later. Have you discovered something new that is worthy about you? And he did acknowledge, I think I can make any conversation interesting, an interesting conversation. I like that about me. And then he talks about these new tricks that he's learned on the trampoline, where there's a trampoline park, like a really humongous one. And he's showed me what he's done, where he goes up on this trampoline, and he does a loop, and he comes down in a meditative state. So, you can really have fun with this, dignity super skill. So, and it is so much fun, when you are acknowledging your own worthiness, you just start seeing it in others. There is just no other way. It is because we don't feel worthy ourselves, which is why we have a lot of the climate change issues that the humans are blaming humans for have arisen from this disconnect with dignity. A tree has value once it becomes an asset on the balance sheet, which means it is chopped, and therefore forests are chopped. But that's not what we really wanted, and you can go solve the climate problem, but until you solve the dignity, until you really imbibe the dignity super skill, there's very little difference that will actually sustain itself, and there's very little difference that will regenerate. This super skill is a master super skill that you can apply with anyone. The fifth one is discernment. Discernment is the quality of being able to grasp and comprehend something that is obscure. And it's through discernment that you also develop a very special ability to persevere. And this has been a big one, certainly in 2020, the whole lockdown and all of that gave us as humans the ability to discern and grasp and comprehend what was unknown. Wasn't obscure because it was playing out, and yet it called for discernment as an ability to be resurfaced. So discernment as a super skill is a really important one. Now, the key thing is, a lot of the time when we beat ourselves up for making wrong choices, could be wrong choices in terms of relationships, or wrong choices of words, or wrong choices of where we choose to put our effort. It is a discernment thing. So when you find yourself berating yourself for having made these choices which were just wrong, simply unhealthy, or however else you may describe it, it is the discernment super skill that is called for. Everything begins by you knowing that you actually already have these super skills. What I got from doing the 7 super skills of parenting, exercises, was that we have all of these. We are born with them. We just don't work with them. We just don't work these skills. So discernment is a re-owning your choice. The fact that you're a human, the fact that you're living on this planet, you're born with choice. And you are the choice in your matter. No one else is, even if you choose to give your choice to someone else. So as a result, discernment is something that you are engaged in. You can be engaged in it consciously, or you can just give over that power to someone else, in which case you will be reacting. It is in discernment that you understand the difference between reaction and responding. The reaction is, reactivating an emotional trigger. And at that point, all you can do is react again with another emotional trigger. What the other person can do is react to your reaction with an emotional trigger. Now you can make the choice of discernment and choose to respond. Respond is reestablishing a bond. And initially it begins with a bond with yourself. If you're bonded to I'm going to be right about it, you're really engaged in reactions. So interrupt that pattern yourself by simply choosing, I'm not going to react, I'm actually going to respond here. So I'm going to take in what's being talked about, grasp and comprehend it, and then we make a choice. And the choice may be simply saying, I require more time. Or I so want to do this, however, it's not feeling like the right thing for me to choose. Even using the word choose as applying it to yourself, choosing the words that you're using, honoring that you are making the choice, discernment automatically kicks in. You're born with it. You're born with it. Think about it. A baby doesn't start, suckling at lots of things. It literally knows when it's going to suckle for milk, where it applies its own discernment. So we are born with it. It's a matter of just reactivating that super skill in a very conscious, concerted way. The sixth super skill is decisiveness. And I mean, some of you have met Sai. The one thing he is decisive. Decisive is coming to a firm conclusion quickly and effectively. But there is immense power in decisions. There is tremendous impact in good decisions. In my world, there's no good or bad. It is like literally you taking a decision, and I've chosen to take a decision of not giving meaning to anything, but really just seeing it for what it is and acknowledging the experience of I feel good, I feel bad, that's fine, but really decisiveness is coming to a firm conclusion quickly and effectively. And that in itself powers you. How do you come to a firm conclusion? So, Sai, let's go, let's do this. No, I'm bored. That's a decision. And he came to it, was firm, and he came to it, quickly and effectively. Well, it wasn't. It was a reaction, really. It wasn't a decision. Because that decision, in a matter of minutes, was changed to something completely different, where we were co-creating a game and an adventure together. So that was simply a reaction. Decisiveness enables you to go beyond reaction. So when you see it, I'm talking about parenting here, but when you look at, and some of us have gone into that rebound relationships, a relationship ends because someone breaks off from you, and then you go on a rebound, and then you're in another relationship. It was a decisive act. You came to that firm conclusion, but it really was a reaction. Decision, like problem solving, really does take the lay of the land into account. And it is from that space you make that firm conclusion. And then you implement it quickly and effectively. Decisiveness as a super skill is a very powerful device that you have to cut through any clutter or confusion. Because whenever there is clutter and confusion, I say to people, okay, just choose to really not work when there is clutter or confusion, but to get to a level of focus. So decide that you're actually going to cut through this clutter. Rather than use bull force to get through it, well, acknowledge there is clutter in my thinking right now. And there are too many choices, or there is just not enough choice and I'm feeling pushed against the wall. At that point, choosing to make no decision is a decision in itself. And it is in this decisive super skill that you build your muscle to use failure as a fast forward, as opposed to failure to really shrivel and shrink down. Failure becomes an expansive experience because it gives you that clarity about what not to do. I can write a whole book just on this particular super skill. And it has paid off. I mean, I feel very humbled when I see this playing out with my son in particular, since this is where the super skills originated from. One of the games we would play, by the way, was actually, in those days, we used to read newspaper in a newspaper form, not online. So we would take a topic, and this is when he was a teenager, very difficult time for most parents. And we would choose a topic and we would really cut out pieces and then sit down and make decisions on the basis of what we had read. And I wanted him to understand about alcoholism and those kind of things, So he went as far as like tracking news items about court hearings and stuff, about what people who were on drugs had done, and then arrived at a decision of how he was going to run his life. It was very interesting, the games that we created here, based on information and then making a decision, and then going ahead and implementing that decision. So you can work with that in boosting your own super skills. Number 7 is creativity, which is the ability to produce new things using skills or imagination. It's a tendency to generate, reorganize ideas, alternatives, possibilities. And really, you can use it in any situation: problem solving, entertaining yourself and others. Creativity is something that is, again, very natural to us as humans. And we created a number of games to enrich this. One of them would be, we would go for walks. So wherever we went, we would collect interesting objects. And we would then make up stories about each of these objects and share that with each other. And by the way, this thing, I still do this. Even in my business federation, where I would say to people, okay, you've got a business situation, go for a walk, go collect objects. Let's have each of those objects give you what is it that can resolve your business situation. And it has been mind-blowing for people, like really creating a sacred mandala with these objects. And really what it's doing is it's giving it is channeling your creativity to discerningly decide what is the solution to the problem that you are currently addressing. Lots more stuff can be talked about in creativity. I know that we are right on on time or just gone past time. So over to you, Catherine.
Mynoo, it is always so fun to share these Thursday evening Pearl of Wisdoms, and tonight was really quite rich. I love this idea of playing these games with these 7 super skills, and thank you for sharing so much of the opportunities you've had and with your family. So I think we can all take these home, play with them, and find out how we can enrich and develop our own lives. So thank you for the 7 super skills. I know we're out of time. We will see you all right here next Thursday for our 103rd Pearl of Wisdom. Thank you again, Mynoo.
Everybody, namaste.